Mr. Transformers 96 here with another Marvel Legends ranking review. This is an exciting ranking today. It's something very special and unique. I wanted to do some sort of video to celebrate all the new Marvel Legends MCU villains that we were receiving this year, and this is what I've decided to do. I've decided to rank them all from my least favorite up to my favorite. I do ranking videos for Marvel Legends every now and then. I tend to rank the waves. I always rank the ones at the end of the year, but this is a special one because it's just kind of unique, and maybe by the time that we boost this collection up a bit, maybe at the end of 2019 when we have a bunch of new villains, I can revisit this list and do it again. However, for right now, I'm going to be ranking my my least favorite to my favorite MCU villains based on figures, not villains in general, just figures themselves. So I'm excited for this. I mainly am able to do this now that that they started the first 10 years series, which went back and they've redone old figures, and they've also did figures that they never made before. And a lot of those were villains, because a lot of times villains were gypped, and therefore they went back and they made a lot of the villains. So I have a nice collection now. I really, if I'm not mistaken, I have every single MCU Marvel Legends villain that they've made. I'm trying to think, and I think that I have like most of the versions of them too. Because I have the updated Thanos, I have the updated Ultron, I have the updated Killmonger. I think that I have quite a nice collection here. So this will be a very well-rounded video. I seem to have them all. I will say that when ranking like some of the characters that have more than one figure of, I'll be combining them together and ranking them as one, and taking the pluses and minuses of both of them together in my ranking. So when when Ultron's on this list, it'll be both of them. When Thanos is on this list, it'll be both of them. Same with Killmonger and Redskull. So I will be combining them. But feel free to check out some of my other Marvel Legends ranking videos. I enjoy making them. You guys enjoy watching them, it seems. And yeah, so let's get started here. This is my personal choices based on the figures themselves, and a little bit of personal preference, I think, when it comes to character. But mainly I'm going to be focusing on the figures and ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite. In last place, we have Ultron from Avengers Age of Ultron. So now we have the original version, which was the Build-A-Figure of the Ant-Man wave back in 2015. And we have the new version, which came out in the first 10 years series, where they updated a lot of the figures and gave us new ones. So I'm, bundling these together, all the 2-packs bundling together, or not 2-packs, but all the figures that have had 2 versions of them made. I'm bundling them in together because it's really hard to place them in the list, just because like with this one, it's just a repaint. So how much better is just the repaint? Usually it would just be the worst one would be the one right before it, and then the next one would be the one right after, usually. So I decided to bundle them up together. These Ultron figures, the sculpting in general, I think is okay on them. It lacks in certain areas. I think that the fingers, the hand expressions are very strange. They're very limited in articulation when it comes to the thighs, especially. And then when it comes to the left one, the paint is atrocious. Not only is it just like silver in some areas, and then this weird, just dull gray in others, but you come to the back, which we all know by now, they didn't even paint the back. So the painting was the most atrocious thing about the original, which they did fix with this new one. The new one has a nice kind of metallic shiny silver, almost with a bluish haze to it, which I think is a ton better than the original, but still the sculpt itself isn't great either. And again, better articulation, better, or just not weird hands would have really helped step this guy up. So even with the updated paint, it still deserves a low spot on this list. And when you look at the two of them together, these are definitely the figures that I have no problem putting as my least favorite when it comes to all the MCU villains. Next up in 14th place, we have the Winter Soldier. This figure is one of the older figures on this list, made back in 2014 when the movie was released. It's a decent figure. It's not hugely, I don't have any huge problems with it, but it does have some of the aspects of a 2014 figure as opposed to the modern ones that we have now, or at least more modern ones that we have now. It's still a good figure, but the detailing is really nice in it, but the torso has an odd look to it. Some of the articulation feels weird. The ankles they don't have a hinge that's far enough, so he does have the tendency to fall backwards. He's always had that issue. I'm not a fan of the choice of color in his outfit. They gave him a brown jacket when he shouldn't have a brown jacket. It should be more of a grayish. So there's just a lot of issues like that definitely knock this figure down. Not a terrible figure, especially by 2014 standards. Not a terrible figure by any means, but definitely deserving a low spot on this list compared to the others. In 13th place, we have Cull Obsidian. This, just figure-wise alone, it is really great. I'm a big fan of the figure. He is the biggest figure on this list. And he's not just the only Build-A-Figure on this list either. There are several Build-A-Figures on this list, and this one's the biggest one. He's the most deserving of being a Build-A-Figure, and I really like the figure in general. I think that it has a lot of great aspects. The reason that he's low on this list is simply because of the lack of accuracy to the movie. It's not just like a few things that are wrong, like Winter Soldier's jacket being the wrong color, it's not accurate, but it's something small and it's understandable. This figure is based on concept art, basically. I mean, other than the head and then the arms, like the head and the arms are accurate, but the body, the legs, the weapon are all super inaccurate, and we do see a piece of concept art that does look like this. So this is clearly based on concept art that they decided to not go with for the movie, and it's just a shame that the figure suffers for being so inaccurate, because it wouldn't have cost them a penny extra to make him accurate. It's not like they did this to save money. This was obviously just started too early in the game to know what the final product was going to be by the time they started producing this figure. So it's a shame, because this could have been amazing, because the figure itself is wonderful, but it's just so inaccurate that it's not even fun to like take pictures of, because it just looks like it doesn't fit in with the others. So again, a big disappointment in the accuracy, but the figure is amazing. But due to the accuracy, I definitely had to put it in a low spot on this list. 12th spot goes to Ego from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. This figure was in a 2-pack with Star-Lord, and overall, I like this figure. I think it's good. It's a completely new design, which is very cool. It has some good articulation. The head sculpt, I think, definitely resembles Kurt Russell in the role of Ego. He does come with 2 head sculpts, which I think is great. My issues with this guy, though, are more are smaller things. He comes with 2 head sculpts, which is awesome, but they're both like almost identical. Really wish that they could have gone with a more extreme secondary expression, considering the first one and the second one are almost the same thing. Like, a lot of people, I was walking in the store with somebody who didn't collect toys and noticed this figure and was confused as to why he came with the 2 of the same head sculpt. So that's how close they are together. And I think that this figure becomes a little boring because of the just lack of neat things that he comes with. He doesn't come with any accessories other than that slightly different head sculpt. When in the movie, he uses like this blue energy. Would have been great if he came with separate hands that are like glowing blue almost essentially, or just kind of like the blue energy pieces that can wrap around his arms or something, just so you can put him in some neat poses. Because otherwise, he looks great just talking to Star-Lord in pictures, but you can't do anything super cool with him, I must say, because he's just kind of a guy without the expressive almost energy effects that could have been given to him, which they didn't, unfortunately. I'm going to have to put Vulture at number 11. I do like the figure quite a bit, but I do find it a shame that you have to build the whole wings as the Build-A-Figure. They don't really scream Build-A-Figure to me. Maybe with the figure it would be much better, but having to buy the figure separate with the wings is kind of annoying. Overall, it's a very cool set, but it's a little finicky. And then my biggest issue is that it doesn't come with a Michael Keaton head sculpt. But overall, I do really like this figure, and it is quite an eye-catcher. Next up, we have Proxima Midnight. This is quite a nice figure. I do like it. I think that it's pretty cool that you get such a large figure just in the single pack that also comes with a Build-A-Figure. It's not just a figure on her own, which is quite nice. I do think that there's quite a good amount of texture and detail throughout her. Some of the articulation could use a bit of amping up, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid piece. Nothing bad, but nothing like amazing. So, pretty mid-range, definitely deserving its spot on the list. 9th place, we have Ronan the Accuser. I do really like the texture in this figure. I think that there's a lot going on, which is very cool. He comes with a nice weapon, which I do think is very cool. His face sculpt is alright. The expression, I think, fits Ronan, although it is a bit plain, but the likeness is a little off, nothing too special. My biggest issue with him is the fact that the shoulder pads are attached to the piece up top, which allows him to have a lot of trouble looking any different way or moving his arms or anything. Would have been nice if he came with like a secondary piece that had the hood detached from the shoulders. I think that would have been nice. Also, if they just had the hood not be attached to the head, that way you can move the head, that would be nice too. There's just, I think there's better ways of doing this than what we actually got. But in general, I think it's a nice figure and the detail is really great. In 8th place, we have the Mad Titans, Thanos. So this was a hard one to place on this list, because I think it's the one where both versions are so different. Like, because one version I would say is bad. The paint, although I like some of the colors on it, it's completely inaccurate, not good. But then the one that they redid is so much better and really great that there's such a big difference between the two. It really kind of evened them out and kind of threw him smack dab in the middle of this list, to be honest, because I believe he's almost dead middle here. And I didn't actually intend for that. I'm just kind of realizing that now. But you got one figure on the left that I would put very much towards the bottom of this list, and then you got one figure on the right which I would put very much towards the front of this list. So it kind of just equaled out, which is a shame because you know, it kind of makes the one that's so good, you know, get a lesser spot on the list. But overall, I think that the sculpt itself is quite nice. I do like it. The face sculpts I think are really great. The paint though is so much better on the newer version to the right here. Even just the detail in the face is brought out so much more by the better paint apps, which I think is just great. Also, you get two head sculpts with the one on the right, which I think is really cool. And then the one on the left was a Build-A-Figure of the Wave, you know, which is just disappointing because you had to buy a bunch of figures to complete him, and then the final product was definitely lacking, especially in the paint. So, unfortunately, you have a great figure and an figure, which kind of evens him out to be just an okay figure, which is disappointing, or just an okay spot on this ranking. But yeah, but there you go for Thanos. In 7th place, we have Loki. I believe this is the oldest figure on the wave, or on this list. He was made back in 2012 for the original Avengers film, and it's a pretty nice figure. It actually holds up quite well. I think the face sculpt's pretty good, especially for back then. The helmet, I think, is really cool, and then the costume in general is really nice. It's 100% a completely new sculpt, never used again, other than when they re-release this figure, you know, in different assortments. But in total, I think it's a really great figure. My only issue is, I wish that the staff that he came with was the extended one, the more grand one. I just think that one looks better. He comes with the one that's more collapsed, which, you know, is fine. He obviously uses it in the movie, but I prefer the other one just because it's a little bit more interesting. But the cape is really nice and very concise. It has a good flow to it, and that was kind of not super typical for figures back then. So overall, this is a great figure, definitely deserving a nice spot on this list. The 6 spots gotta go to Killmonger. I have both versions here, the one that came out in the original wave, and then the one that was in the Target exclusive 2-pack. These are both really good figures. I absolutely love the detailing on it, and I love the fact that he comes with both like aggressive hands and weapon hands. The only issue I had with the first one was the fact that we didn't get a Michael B. Jordan head sculpt, which was rectified then with the subsequent version, which I'm very happy with. It's the same thing, but you just get a new head sculpt. And then, to be honest, actually the body is completely new because you have these like little dotted pieces throughout the body of the new one. But the paint gets a little weird with the new one. They're obviously kind of outlined everything in gold, which gives him the appearance of that kind of the suit when it radiates that color gold when he's charging up. But it's so cleanly done that it doesn't really like accurately reflect that. It's just kind of meant to look a little bit like that. But then the suit, I'm not a fan of the fact that they went with such a light gray. It should be a darker charcoal gray like it is on the left here. So to be honest, neither of them is perfect. They're both really good. Don't get me wrong. They're both like really, really good. But neither of them is perfect. I feel like they could both be amped up a little bit. But overall, really liking both of these figures. Next up, we have the Mandarin from the Iron Man 3, the First 10 Years 3-pack. This is a great figure. This is a figure that was originally supposed to come out in 2013 for Iron Man 3, never was released, and now we're finally getting it. Now it's the exact same figure, but with a completely new paint scheme, which really improved the figure a ton. If you look at pictures of the unreleased version compared to this is a million times better, even though it's the same figure, it's just paint that's different. But that paint makes a huge difference. Really love all the detail on the cloak. I think the head sculpt is really spot on, absolutely representing Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin, and just in general, I think that it is a really solid, well put together figure. Character-wise, obviously some people may hate him. I certainly don't like the way that he was represented in the movie, but I've always liked the look of him, and they really nailed the look here, which is very important. And yeah, in total, I think it's a great figure. In 4th place, we have Crossbones. This is from the 2-pack from the First 10 Years series. This is a great figure. This was a figure that, you know, I had been wanting to come out back in 2016 for Civil War. It never came out, but they finally rectified that with this this inclusion in this series this year. So it's quite nice. The head sculpt I think is quite cool. I do like the kind of mass version. My only issue is the head looks a little small. I wish that they bulked up the head a little bit better so that it was in more proportion with the body. But I love the fact that he comes with a Rumlow head sculpt as well. You get 2 head sculpts, which I think is very important. And I think it's very cool that you can remove the gauntlet pieces, although the gauntlet pieces are so visually interesting, I don't know why you ever would want to remove them, but it's nice that you have the option to. Having an extended like knife coming out of the gauntlets would have been cool. That would have been a nice addition. But in general, I think this is a really nice figure. Great detail. I love the paint, especially when they painted on the white kind of skull pieces and on the chest, the X. It's supposed to, you know, kind of look like it's been almost drawn on via chalk. That's kind of the look that I get from it. And even though it's been applied here paint-wise, it's really well done. Like it really looks like it was kind of just put on with chalk, which I think is really cool. So overall, really nice Crossbones figure. Alright, in the bronze position we have Hela. This is where the list gets like really difficult. I think, like, to be honest, below 8, it was really difficult to actually put together because there was quite a few really good figures. But Hela, you know, at one point I considered putting her at number 1, so you can just see how interchangeable some of these are, especially towards the front of the list here. But I think that Hela is a fantastic figure. She was released just in a regular series with a Build-A-Figure piece. She's much bigger than your average figure, much taller, much bulkier. She comes with an amazing head sculpt, which is some massive horn pieces off of it. But then you also get an interchangeable head sculpt of more of just Cate Blanchett without the headpiece, which I think is really cool. I think the color scheme is wonderful. You've got this really nice kind of olive green, metallic, dark green type of look, which I think is very nice, and the cape is done well as well too. So in general, I think this is a fantastic figure. My only issue is the cape is just ever so long enough that it's hard for her, like her legs have to be fully extended to hit the ground. I wish the cape was a little shorter so that you could have more freedom and posability without the cape being like so long. But that's, you know, that's very much a nitpick. This is a fantastic figure, definitely deserving such a high spot on this list. In second place, we have Yellowjacket from the First 10 Years 2-pack that came out just this year in 2018. This is a fantastic figure. Yellowjacket, in my opinion, is one of the most visually interesting Marvel Universe villains that they've ever done in the movies, and I've always been disappointed with the lack of merchandise for this character. However, getting this Marvel Legends figure really helped to make that right. So this figure was personally one that I was very excited for, and it did not disappoint. I'm very happy with the sculpt. I think that you have some really nice texture, especially with that honeycomb effect throughout all the yellow pieces in him. I love the backpack that it comes with the stinger pieces. The stinger pieces have a nice amount of articulation as well, so you can really achieve some good poses. And then I like the kind of clear plastic screen in front of his face, and you can see that his eyes or everything are sculpted in there, but they're sculpted well behind that clear plastic piece, so it gives it some depth, which I think is quite advanced for this scale of a figure and for this price range. Articulation is absolutely wonderful, especially with the ankle that it swivels, hinges, and pivots at the same time. Really helps with posability and articulation in general. Really great figure, just like Hela. Considered putting him at number 1, but I decided to go with number 2, but definitely deserving a very high spot on this list. And for the number 1 spot, I've decided to go with Redskull from Captain America: The First Avenger. Both of these were released this year in 2018 as a part in the First 10 Years series, one of them being a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. So these figures, you know, again, really hard to decide what would be number 1. I decided to go with these because they're very well rounded. Out of every set of figures that I've put on this list that, you know, they've made the same character but twice, this is the one that's done the best, to be honest. Like, both of them are really good. They both are. There's just really not a whole lot of issues with either of them. And other than Killmonger, they both were good, but they were both a little inaccurate. But these two are just spot on. They really are. The head sculpts I'm a big fan of. I like the expression. I like the sculpt in general. I think it looks really good. They're two completely different sculpts, basically, when it comes to the torso and arms and the whole thing. So you get some nice range there as far as the look of the figure. And then with the Redskull on the right, you get just a slew of accessories to turn him in all sorts of different characters, such as the Hydra Soldier, which makes him a prime candidate for some army building, which I didn't do a ton of, but I did recently for Cyber Monday grab another one just so I can make a Hydra Soldier since they were $12. So overall, this is a great figure. It really is well-rounded. You get a whole lot with it, and it is the figure that they finally made that took them the longest to do. So it almost has a little extra oomph of finally getting it made. considering we did see this character in 2011, and it took until 2018 for them to finally make a figure of him. So it took 7 long years to finally get a Marvel Legends movie Redskull, and yet they did not disappoint when they finally delivered. And they didn't just deliver one, but they delivered two, and then they also delivered Hydra soldiers on top of it. So they really outdid themselves, and therefore, with all those reasons combined, I feel comfortable putting both versions of Redskull as what I would consider to be the best MCU villain Marvel Legends figure that they've released for the MCU. Alright, so there's my ranking from my least favorite to my favorite MCU Marvel Legends villain. I'm extremely excited to have such a wide variety of villains to choose from for this ranking video. Had I done this in 2017, I would have had 14 less figures up here, and there's only 20 figures up here. So it's just amazing how many of these figures came out just in this year. Not only did we get, let's see, 4 of these figures were from Infinity War, and then we did get 2 from Black Panther, so there's 6. But then that means that there's 8 figures that were released villain-wise just in the first 10 years series line that they did. So they really amped up the villains this year, which is I couldn't be any happier with, because I am a big Marvel villains fan, just a villains fan in general, but especially Marvel villains. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think of my ranking. Again, I based it on several different things, and it was very hard to put this list together. One of the hardest lists I've had to put together, especially just because there were so many really good ones. I think just because so many of them came out in 2018, so they're just like top quality ones, that it was really hard to decide towards the end here. But overall, really happy with my list. Let me know what you guys think of my list. I'd love to hear your guys' own choices, and I can't wait for the future MCU villains. So far, we only have one confirmed, one being the Skrull from Captain Marvel. Can't wait to get that figure, but I'm sure there will be a slew more, and can't wait to get them as well. So there you go. Thanks so much for watching.